things with they believe what the government is actually doing, and then we can talk about city services. And I also think it's good, just responsiveness from government is really important. I'm really interested in making sure that youth have access, as you were saying. I'm really interested in forming a youth commission. So again, we're going to everybody in the community for feedback, not just the same few voices that have been engaging, but our young people that are going to be inheriting the system is very important.
What specific initiatives and policies will you advocate towards to help your community's recovery efforts after the devastating fires last year?
I think that we need to make sure we're coordinating all of the efforts and resources. I think that to me seems like the number one problem in our recovery effort. It feels like there's multiple layers of government. There are multiple different nonprofits that have come together. People are struggling to get through their rebuild process. People are still struggling with insurance. People are, in various financial situations after the rebuild. And and then of course there's like the standards of the rebuild and climate resiliency, all of that. And I think the number one thing we really did need is a rebuilding authority to coordinate all of this for multiple levels of government, and so people know where to go. And so as a council member, I will really push that forward. State Senator Ben Allen introduced a bill to try and do that, and I really want to push forward with that. I also think making sure we're rebuilding with climate in mind is really important. So with the resiliency work is really essential. There have been some incredible groups that have been already talking about this, like Resilient Palisades, Palisades Recovery Coalition. These groups have been bringing community members together to provide input on how they want their rebuild. And the government really should be taking a cue from them, I think, because they actually know what they want as people that experienced that devastating fire.
So, the City Council approved a feasibility study of a public LA bank. Now, what do you believe a public bank would do for your district specifically? Do you see a need for a public bank? And could you discuss the benefits, both immediate and long term, that you see it delivering in your district?
Um, So yes, I support the LA Public Bank.
Mhm.
And the idea behind the public bank is that we put our deposits in our own municipal bank, and then we can invest. We also get the money back on the interest rate from that versus giving it to another bank, and then we can use that money and it also lend it out ourselves. And so I think that's my understanding of what our public bank would be useful for. And I do know that it's been successful in other jurisdictions like South Dakota. I believe South Dakota that has a public South Dakota or North Dakota that has a public bank.
Mhm.
But I know several council members have committed some discretionary money to seed it. So I think more council members can put money to seed it to we need to stand it up right now, and then we can start implementing it to fund different programs. And so, I think it kind of, when I think about it, it's like a private bank, but actually municipal. And so therefore we would keep our own receipts and generate money back and then be able to invest it back into Los Angeles.
How do you aim to improve the relations between tenants and landlords in the district?
So I think that it's important that we have strong renter protections so that we keep people housed. It is the number one way to address homelessness in
Mhm.
our city. Um, the Homeless Services Authority said that a couple years ago when they did their homeless count, they said that if we stopped the inflow into homelessness, stopped people from being evicted, we could stop homelessness. So I think renter protections are really important. And, I think that I don't see a conflict between the tenants and landlords, especially the mom and pop landlords, the smaller landlords. I think when I hear from the smaller landlords, their goal is just they're like, we're just trying to make our building run. And
Yeah.
so when I'm thinking about policy, it's sort of making sure we pass strong tenant protections to keep people housed. And also, we do want buildings to be able to maintain themselves too. So I think that that's a important consideration for any policymaker to hear from the owners of buildings to see how how policies are impacting them to make sure their buildings are able to be maintained for people and habitable.
Could you tell me a bit about your plans to make transportation more accessible, especially public and clean transport?
Um, yes. So I am really interested in um, investing in more public transit in the district. It's it as a district, we have the Expo line. So we have one metro that goes in the middle of the district to Santa Monica.
Mm-hmm.
But so the majority of the district is serviced by buses. And then we have bike lanes, some bike lanes, east-west primarily. And there have been recent DOT projects to do more bike lanes that are north-south. So I'm really interested in making sure our bike lanes network is connected, north-south and east-west, that they're protected. There was just a mother who was recently killed biking in Playa del Rey with her family. And that's my worst nightmare as a mom, and that's why we have to fight for protected bike lanes.
Mm-hmm.
And more people would bike if we had protected bike lanes in Los Angeles. And I really want to see a stronger bus network as well, so more people are incentivized to use our bus transportation system. And so it's connected to Santa Monica and Culver City, and so I think those investments are important. And then in order to make them more user friendly, we should invest in shade infrastructure, benches. We need if we create walkability and support our small businesses, that increases sort of the overall streetscape that makes it more pleasant to be able to use our public transportation.
So, as a local leader, how do you plan to respond to ICE and protect the community?
I think that, it's been really hard to see our state and local leaders struggle with how to respond to federal forces in our cities because the federal government and ICE has so much power over immigration enforcement, and that's why I think it makes sense to have a position of abolishing ICE
Mm-hmm.
even as a local candidate, even though it's not something I get to vote on, but um, I don't believe that ICE needs to exist. It didn't exist before 2003. And then in terms of local policies, we need to strengthen our sanctuary city policies. We need to make sure that our LAPD is not cooperating with ICE. And that's a carve out that exists right now. We need to make sure all of our city buildings and city property is fully secure from ICE. Our city workers, when they're doing public works projects, are secure. And we need to make sure our city government is supporting groups on the ground that are doing community rapid response.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to make sure that. And then, as a basic thing, this goes back to a common theme for me. We need to make sure we have a robust safety net here so that our residents in Los Angeles don't feel like they have to go out and put themselves at risk and work if they just so they can make rent. So we should make sure that no one gets evicted if they're impacted by the raids. That's an example of a policy that's a social safety net policy to me. We should make sure that families have food support and and other needs being met, groceries. And so those are ways that local government can really step up to, as we're all like facing the onslaught from the federal government, really step up to support residents.
And then this is our last question. So, What's your take on the LA City budget? So I know there's like a lot of talks about a deficit. So what do you have to say for that?
So I think that our budget is a document of values. Our
Mhm.
budget is a document of our city's moral values and what we care to invest in.
Mhm.
And right now, a significant portion of our budget goes to LAPD, and then every year we have to cut from city services.
Mhm.
So last year, to me, one of the most egregious things that we did was cut the youth development department.
Mhm.
And this is a department that we created recently to provide youth services, and and we cut it because we had to balance the budget, and that is exactly the type of department that I would want to invest in because it creates safety that we talked about.
Yeah.
For our youth should have, and I've heard this before from in Venice, that if our high school students had better after school programming, then they wouldn't be potentially lured into other activities that could set them down the wrong road. And and so that's an example of us disinvesting from something that benefits all of us. And so I want to see investments in our streets, street safety. I want to see investments in housing. And I want to see investments in arts and culture programming. I want to see investments in our schools. I want to see investments in our parks. That's when I look at the budget, I want to make sure we're not cutting from those things. Sanitation. Those are all examples of things that we all care about that create a healthy city for all of us. And if every year we have to keep cutting it because we have to keep giving money to LAPD for more helicopters, then I think there's something seriously wrong. And so we really need to be looking as a whole at the city budget. It's really important for everybody to engage in the budget process. In the city of Los Angeles, it does feel like something opaque, and it's really hard for residents to get involved. And so it's definitely something that I think young people you could write a letter
Mhm.
on to all the council members to say we are high school students in Los Angeles, and this is what we care about the city investing in. You could ask our controller. Our controller's been doing budget town halls to educate people, and so everybody needs to get involved in the process.
All right. Those are all of our questions. Thank you so much for answering them very detailed and openly. We love to have open dialogue. So thank you so much for that.